Hello, my dear friends. World War II stands out as the most devastating conflict in the annals of human history. The aftermath of this war left numerous grand cities in ruins, and today nearly all significant geopolitical occurrences and international relations can be traced back to its profound impact. We'll explore its inception, progression, reasons behind it, and the lasting consequences. This is the narrative of World War II. Pinpointing a singular event that ignited the conflict proves challenging, for it was an intricate web of events conspiring together to eventually kindle the flames of war. The catalyst for this worldwide upheaval, known as World War II, can be traced back to the Treaty of Versailles in 1939, widely regarded as the world's most reviled treaty. Let's commence our journey in 1919, the year when World War I concluded and renowned Treaty of Versailles was inked. Within this treaty lay an imperative clause, Article 231, which assigned Germany the responsibility for all losses incurred during World War I. This clause, also known as the War Guilt Clause, insinuated that Germany was to bear the blame for the entire conflict regardless of the involvement of other nations. France and Britain, eager to recoup their losses from the war, sought to impose hefty reparations on Germany. Consequently, as stipulated in the Treaty of Versailles, Germany was saddled with a staggering $33 billion fine to be paid to other nations, an amount equivalent to approximately $270 billion in today's currency. It's worth noting that Germany only made its final payment in 2010, almost a century later. You may be wondering where the colossal sum was sourced from. The answer is Germany itself, and more specifically its citizens. Germany's initial payment in 1921 was swiftly followed by hyperinflation, leading to rapid devolution of the German market. To put it in perspective, in 1922, a loaf of bread in Berlin cost a whopping 160 marks, but by 1923, that same loaf had skyrocketed to an astronomical 200 billion marks. The repercussions were dire, with the economy left in tatters and unemployment rates soaring. In this dire climate, a pivotal figure emerged in our narrative: Adolf Hitler, a charismatic young political leader adept at swaying the masses with its oratory skills. In 1923, Hitler's Nazi party attempted to overthrow the German government through a coup. Despite its failure, it significantly bolstered Hitler's popularity. Widespread rumors attributed Germany's international humiliation to so-called anti-national elements within the country, and people were agitated and vulnerable to manipulation. Hitler, in his propaganda machine, scapegoated Jews and socialists as the culprits behind Germany's disgrace. In 1929, the Great Depression arrived, exacerbating Germany's already dire unemployment situation. By 1933, a staggering 6 million people in Germany were unemployed, many were homeless, and children were succumbing to starvation. Consequently, in 1933, Adolf Hitler declared himself the dictator of Germany. Upon assuming absolute control of the nation, he embarked on the realization of his grand vision: a German empire, the German Reich. This envisioned state was to be categorized by racial purity, inhabited exclusively by people of the Aryan race, with no place for Jews and slaves. To fuel animosity, they propagated the Judeo-Bolshevism conspiracy theory, which unjustly blamed Jews for the 1917 Russian Revolution, ultimately leading to the establishment of the Soviet Union. In 1935, a revelation sent shockwaves around the world: Germany possessed an air force. While this might not appear significant at first glance, it was a blatant violation of the Treaty of Versailles, which had forbidden Germany from having any military capabilities. However, by this juncture, many in Britain believed that treaty's terms had been excessively harsh on Germany, exacting a crippling toll on the country. The treaty's restrictions on military power were perceived as unduly burdensome. In June 1935, Britain further acknowledged this sentiment by signing the Anglo-German Naval Agreement, formally recognizing Hitler's authority to establish a navy for Germany. This decision raised alarm bells in France, prompting the construction of the Maginot Line, a formidable 450-kilometer-long fortification on its eastern border. By 1938, Hitler turned his sights towards Austria, a nation he deemed essential. He sought the unification of all German-speaking countries into a single nation. His objectives extended beyond territorial conquest and pride. He aimed to acquire resources to advance his country. For the racially superior Aryan race he championed, Hitler envisioned providing Lebensraum, a living space where they could thrive freely. In February 1938, Hitler met with Austrian Chancellor Kurt Schuschnigg, coercing him into signing an agreement that allowed Hitler to install pro-Nazi officials within the Austrian government. This infiltration included individuals like Dr. Hans Fischbach, who was slated to become Austria's new finance minister. Within a mere month, the situation spiraled out of control. Schuschnigg realized that consulting the people was imperative to determine whether Austria should remain independent or unite with the Nazis. He opted for a national referendum to determine Austria's fate. However, as soon as Hitler got wind of this vote, he swiftly mobilized his army and marched into Austria, with German military forces entering Vienna. The Austrian Chancellor, in a bid to avoid bloodshed, resigned from his position. Hitler leveraged his propaganda machinery to disseminate false information about riots occurring in Vienna, blaming the communists for the unrest. Consequently, the Austrian government appealed to the German army for assistance in safeguarding Austria. The following day, the Austrian parliament was dissolved and Austria lost its status as independent nation. This invasion, remarkably, was executed without any bloodshed, largely owing to the fact that many Austrians had been swayed by Hitler's propaganda. They believed that Hitler's incursion would benefit them and elevate their country to superpower status. After annexing Austria, Hitler turned his attention to the next target, Czechoslovakia. Along Czechoslovakia's border lay the Sudetenland region, home to around 3 million ethnic Germans. Hitler used this as a pretext to claim the Sudetenland for Germany due to its German population. Enter British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, who was determined to avert a war at any cost. He believed that acceding to Hitler's demand would pacify him and prevent conflict. Hence, in September 1938, the Munich Agreement was signed. Chamberlain famously declared, "The settlement of the Czechoslovakian problem, which has now been achieved, is in my view only the prelude. There are larger settlements in which all Europe may find peace." Under this agreement, the Sudetenland was handed over to Germany on the condition that Hitler committed to avoiding further aggression. Hitler eagerly accepted the peace of Czechoslovakian territory. However, not even a year passed before he violated the Munich Agreement. In March 1939, Hitler dispatched his army to invade the remainder of Czechoslovakia, leading to its partition. One part was absorbed into German territory while the other was transformed into a Nazi puppet state under the name of the Slovak Republic. British Prime Minister Chamberlain faced substantial criticism for his appeasement policy, and Winston Churchill voiced his concerns. At this juncture, Hitler set his sights on Poland. In a crafty maneuver, he inked a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union in 1939. This might seem perplexing given Hitler's aversion to the Soviet Union and communist ideology. However, the sole purpose of this pact was to pave the way for the invasion of Poland, as the Soviet Union also sought territorial gains in Poland. Their interests converged in this situation. On September 1, 1939, nearly 1 million German troops began their advance into Poland, launching simultaneous attacks from the north and south. This development left other nations in shock, with the UK and France growing increasingly impatient. Fearing that they could be Hitler's next target if he continued his expansionist agenda unchecked, they issued an ultimatum to Hitler. If he proceeded with the invasion of Poland, they would declare war on Germany. Hitler disregarded the ultimatum, prompting the UK to officially declare war against Germany. Subsequently, France, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and Canada also declared war on Germany. UK Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain made this announcement via radio broadcast. Yet, it's essential to note that at this point in time, World War II had not yet officially commenced. This period is famously referred to as the phony war because despite the formal declarations of war against Germany by the UK and France, there was no actual combat taking place. None of these countries provided military support to Poland, which unfortunately possessed a severely outdated army still relying on horses. This outdated military couldn't withstand Germany's modern warfare strategy, leaving Poland vulnerable. Neither Britain nor France could come to Poland's rescue, and despite mobilizing nearly 1.3 million people in Poland, it took less than a week for the German army to conquer the nation, with German troops occupying Poland on September 8, 1939. It's crucial to acknowledge Hitler's revolutionary military strategy during this period, known as Blitzkrieg. Employing this strategy, Hitler swiftly invaded multiple countries, prioritizing speed and stealth. Tanks played a pivotal role in these lightning-fast invasions, catching opponents off guard, followed by the swift engagement of the Luftwaffe, Germany's air force. This lightning-fast approach epitomized the meaning of Blitz, which is lightning in German. Hitler aimed to keep wars as brief as possible, concluding them in less than a week. To sustain this blitzkrieg, German soldiers were administered drugs, notably a substance called Pervitin, which is now known as crystal meth. This drug eliminated fatigue, reduced the need for sleep, suppressed hunger and thirst, minimized pain, and boosted confidence. While these drugs had severe long-term health consequences, they proved invaluable in achieving short-term victories. German soldiers could maintain constant combat day and night, while defending forces wasted time sleeping at night. As our narrative progresses, you will witness the remarkable success of Germany's Blitzkrieg military strategy. Returning to Poland, it faced not only invasion from Hitler's forces but also from the Soviet Union. Following Poland's defeat, it was divided in two. Nazi Germany claimed one half, while the other half was annexed by the Soviets. The Soviet rationale was based on the historical fact that the area had been part of the Russian Empire before the Russian Revolution, hence justifying their territorial claim. However, from the Soviet perspective, another country had also been part of the Russian Empire before 1917. Finland was a source of concern for Stalin due to fears of a German invasion, as he couldn't fully trust Hitler. The proximity of Leningrad, Stalin's residence, to Finland's border heightened these concerns. In an attempt to preempt any potential German occupation of Finland, the Soviet Union demanded Finnish territory. Finland unsurprisingly declined, leading to a Soviet military offensive in November 1939. Despite the vast superiority of the Soviet army in both size and equipment, the war lasted over 2 months, resulting in limited Soviet gains. Finally, in March 1940, the Moscow Peace Treaty was signed, transferring 11% of Finland's land to the Soviet Union. Meanwhile, Hitler's focus shifted towards Norway and Denmark in April 1940. Employing his Blitzkrieg strategy, he swiftly invaded these smaller countries, leading to their fall. In Norway, Hitler installed a pro-Nazi government while the Norwegian government fled to London, establishing a government in exile. Chamberlain's failure to protect neighboring countries prompted his resignation as British Prime Minister on May 10, 1940, with Winston Churchill taking his place. On the same day, Hitler initiated an all-out offensive against France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. This marked a declaration of unrelenting aggression. France had previously constructed the Maginot Line to guard against a possible German attack, but this defense proved insufficient. The Allied forces were stationed along the borders of Belgium and Luxembourg to protect them. Hitler employed the Blitzkrieg strategy involving over 1,000 fighter bomber planes and around 3 million ground troops in the Battle of France. The German forces were divided into three groups, A, B, and C. Group B attacked the Netherlands and then moved into Belgium to engage the Allies. Group C targeted the Maginot Line, serving as a distraction for Group A's master plan, which involved a surprise invasion of France to the Ardennes forest. This forest, believed to be an impenetrable fortress, was an unexpected route of attack. Using over 40,000 military vehicles, Group A entered France to the Ardennes on May 15, 1940, capturing Sedan and advancing northwards. Meanwhile, the British forces in Belgium faced a sudden assault from behind and were surrounded by the Nazi army on three sides. Their only escape route was through Dunkirk, where a historic event unfolded. Nearly 400,000 Allied troops, primarily British and French, were stranded on Dunkirk's beaches, facing the rapid advance of the Nazi army. Their evacuation was critical to prevent a potential disaster. Winston Churchill initiated Operation Dynamo on May 26, 1940, the largest military evacuation in history. Despite facing attacks from both land and air, approximately 350,000 soldiers were successfully evacuated by June 4, 1940. However, this evacuation depleted most of the Allied forces' military equipment. A few weeks later, on June 22, 1940, France surrendered to Hitler, and Italy, led by Mussolini, joined forces with Germany through the Pact of Steel. Together, they declared war on France and Britain on June 10. By July 1940, Hitler had gained control over numerous neighboring countries. Britain, the last standing opponent, appeared to be his primary adversary, as the Soviet Union had a peace agreement with Germany. The United States remained uninvolved in World War II at this stage, as it had little interest in European affairs after World War I. The situation seemed dire, with Hitler holding a significant advantage. The turning point in the conflict and Britain's ability to resist Germany will be explored further in Part 2. Stay tuned for the continuation of this story.